All right, guys, here we are. Part number 3, grass frog dissection. Last part we're going to do, what we're going to do on this one is we're going to go just a little bit deeper. So on the last video, we did our incisions. We got to look at some of the organs and the structures that were inside. What we're going to do now is we're going to remove some of those organs so that we can see a little bit deeper into the anatomy of this thing. So let's go ahead and just get started. All right, here we go. Okay, we've got our frog all laid out. What I told you on the last video, or at the end of the last video, was the first thing I was going to do is I was going to remove the liver. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take and remove all 3 lobes of the liver. There's 1. There's 2. And there's the 3rd one. Okay, now once I have those taken out, we then can see a little bit more of the structures that are right here. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to actually disconnect the small intestine from the stomach. And I'm going to do that at a place called the duodenum. So this little neck down area that we see right here, this is where the stomach and the small intestine connect. There's a tiny band of muscle called the duodenum, and that thing will open and close and allow things to go into that small intestine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and disconnect at that point. I'm also going to go down here and I'm going to disconnect the small intestine from the large intestine. So I'm going to go ahead and snip right here. Now, in order to get this whole small intestine out of there, I actually am going to have to go and disconnect all of the mesenteries, these little blood vessels that you see that are helping to hold everything together. So once I do that, and it kind of comes apart on its own, if you pull very, very gently and carefully, we actually then can disconnect the whole small intestine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of snip some of those mesenteries a little bit, make it a little bit easier for me to string this out so that you guys can see exactly how long that small intestine is. Okay, so if we were to measure our frog right now, and I'm just doing a rough measurement here, guys, our frog is right at about 5.5 inches from tail to head. So if we measure our small intestine, and I'm not stretching it out super hard, but there's 5.5. Let's keep pulling here. That makes 11. Because 5.5 and 5.5 is 11. And I would say it's another 5 inches or so. There's about 16 inches of small intestine that was located inside of our frog. So roughly 3 times the length is what the small intestine ended up being. Okay, so once we get in here, again, we can see some more of these structures. Remember, this is the spleen. It helps filter blood. The kidneys right down here, this darker colored structure right there. You have the large intestine, this particular frog. And what I can tell you right now is, I forgot to tell you the gender. This frog is a male. Here's the large intestine. Sorry, got off track. Large intestine, bladder. But then, guys, right over here at the very bottom of these fat bodies are these little pinkish kind of structures. And I don't know if you guys can see it real well, but it's this guy right here. That's a testy. So that actually is what's producing sperm for the male here. And there would be one on this side as well. That's this little guy right here. So this is a male frog. The females are going to have what's called an oviduct. And it kind of almost looks a lot like spaghetti. And it's kind of all just kind of bunched up in here. And a lot of times what we would see with the females is it's not just going to be empty space here. There's going to be eggs that would be inside of this. And unfortunately, this one was a male. Typically speaking, most of the time males are larger than the females are. So this happens to be a pretty large specimen. My indication then would have been that this possibly was a male even before we had actually begun our dissection. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, guys, is I'm going to split the bone that goes in between the front legs here. And I have to do that for 2 reasons. Number one, it's hindering what we're going to see underneath of it. This girdle right here is actually protecting two really, really important organs, and that's the heart and the lungs. But it's also going to allow us, secondly, for me to then take our probe, our blunt probe, and insert it through the esophagus down into the stomach before we remove that stomach out and see if there's anything inside of it. So I'm going to go ahead and make a cut here. You guys are going to hear some crunching, so let me, there she went. Okay. And what I'll do is I'll do my best to kind of pull this stuff down so that you can see. It's a little hard. I'll maybe have to twist a little bit, but we'll go ahead and do this. All right. Down at the bottom of this thing, there are some little purpley colored sacs, and there's actually two of them. There's one right here, and then there would be one on the other side as well, which you won't be able to, well, maybe if I twist it here. There we go. There it is, right there. Those are the lungs, okay? So that glottis, which was that opening in the mouth at the bottom below the esophagus, remember the glottis, which is this guy right here, that is going to be what leads to each of those structures that's right there, okay? Our next one, or the next structure we're looking at, ooh, this one's got a big one. He's got a big heart. Inside, underneath that girdle, that pelvic girdle, or I should say that the arm girdle, the chest girdle that we have, not the pelvic, that's down here, we have the heart. And one of the things about the heart of a frog, they are a three-chambered structure. So in a human and other higher order vertebrates, we have a four-chambered heart. The more chambers you have, the more efficient your heart works. So our blood never ever mixes in our heart. When we pump blood out of our heart, it's full of oxygen and nutrients, and it goes to our body. When it comes back to our heart, it's very, very lacking in those oxygen and nutrients. It's got carbon dioxide, all kinds of gross, nasty stuff in it. Basically, guys, each chamber of our heart then, it actually infuses or reinfuses that blood. It takes out the bad carbon dioxide, puts in new oxygen and nutrients so that it can go everywhere else. The more chambers you have, the more efficient your heart is. These have a three-chambered heart. There are two on the top, one on the bottom. So these are going to be called atriums. The bottom one's called the ventricle. Blood will pass through in one way. Most of the time it's clockwise, excuse me, not counter. It's clockwise, okay? And that actually is going to then allow that organ to reinfuse oxygen back into the bloodstream to go to the rest of the body. So that is a little deeper look. The final thing we're going to do is we are going to insert the probe into the stomach, and then I'm going to actually open the stomach up so we can see if there's any food or any leftover things inside of it. But what we're going to do here, guys, is I'm going to take my blunt probe. Yeah, there it is. We're going to insert through the esophagus. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to just push it down. And if you see, I now have it in the stomach, and I can wiggle it all around here. But if I continue to push, eventually it's going to come out the bottom of that stomach. Okay, so that kind of just tracks the whole digestive system as it goes from mouth into the stomach. Let's go ahead and remove that stomach, and we're going to see, I'm actually going to cut the esophagus here. I know, it looks kind of gross, but here's the stomach. I can already tell you, I don't think there's going to be anything inside of this. It's pretty soft and small. We have found things in the past. We found leftover bug remnants. A lot of times it's digestive matter, so it's kind of goo-like stuff. But we're going to go ahead. We'll open up the stomach. Let's see if there's anything inside. Nope. Just as I suspected, nothing there. Okay, what you are going to be seeing, though, inside the stomach, all this ribbed looking stuff, this is called pili. And the pili is there to help break down and secrete some of the acids that this thing would use to digest its food. And then you'll also notice that these bands of muscle, this allows the stomach to be able to expand. So as this thing eats, And that stomach is able then to grow and allow it to actually take in the things that this thing was actually eating so that it can be digested. This doesn't have anything in it, unfortunately, but kind of a cool little view of the stomach. All right, guys, as far as it goes, that is going to be our dissection of the common grass frog. Um, for some of you, maybe kind of interesting, kind of neat, kind of maybe wants you to do a little bit more, especially when you get older. You can go into a biology or an advanced biology class in high school. For some of you, maybe this wasn't your most favorite thing, but there is a lot of really remarkable stuff inside of our frogs, and they are somewhat similar to us as humans. We have a lot of the same structures, not necessarily in the same places, but they're doing a lot of the same jobs. We know that the heart and the lungs work together to help get oxygen into the body. We know that the digestive system, the mouth, the esophagus, the stomach, the small and large intestines, that's helping to get the nutrients that we need. The kidneys, the spleen, those are filtering organs. So they're helping us to be able to keep our bodies operating at peak efficiency. So that is going to be it. I'm going to go ahead and take my gloves off here before I tip the screen back up. All right. I know this isn't exactly what we had hoped to do. I was hoping you guys would be able to do the dissections, but because we can't, we're not in school, this is what I was able to come up with. I hope that it was informative. I hope that you guys learned something and took away from it. If you have any questions, don't feel hesitant or don't feel bad to hit me up with an email, ask me a question. I'll do my best I can to answer it. But guys, what I really do hope is that this video will give you a little bit of insight into a very high level vertebrate animal, and that would be the common grass frog. Hope you enjoyed. We will talk again soon. Have a great long weekend. We will see you guys next Tuesday.